Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, whatever the case may be. This is the Peaceful Savage Show. I am the host, Professor Ivan Savage. Today I'd like to talk to you about the big question, the giant question, the elephant in the room. The question everybody really wants answered: what is truth? Truth. It's a finicky thing, you see, because these days everybody wants to be able to just have their own truth. You know, you can't have 1, 2, 3, or a million people all have different versions of the truth if they contradict each other, because if they contradict each other, then that would make one of them a lie. To be able to have 100 or, even 2 different versions of the truth destroys the very foundation of the word by making it a lie. So today let's talk about truth. Let's put it into this allegory. You walk into a room. The only door into this room and the only door out of this room. Immediately upon entering the room, the smell of gunpowder wafts in your face. You see this man standing there with a smoking gun in his hand with gunshot residue all over his hand. And then at his feet is a dead man with a smoking bullet hole in his forehead and blood spilling out onto the floor. You can't walk into that room, see these things, experience these things, and then turn around and say, well, he didn't really have a gun in his hand. Yes, he did. He didn't really have gunshot residue on his hand. Yes, he did. Well, there wasn't really a dead body at his feet. Yes, there was. These days, we have the ability, I guess you can say, of just absolutely denying facts, evidentiary proofs, in order to maintain our own versions of it. And actually, to be honest with you, I think that this is precisely what is driving mankind apart to eventual self-annihilation, it seems. 50 people, 100 people, 1 million people all having their own versions of history and their own versions of truth and their own versions of reality really kind of destroys any possibility of having any kind of peaceful society, because we're not all grounded and unified with any kind of truth. We're all fighting over what it is when the evidentiary proofs are there. The historical evidence is there. The geological evidence is there. The archaeological evidence being unearthed is there. All the tepes, the high places all over, not just in, this little small section of the Middle East. They're being found everywhere. One of the most recent ones, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Scientists are saying this place was purposefully buried, and it dates further back than 11,000 years, possibly 20, maybe even more. We need to take into these accounts these new evidentiary proofs and stop pigeonholing ourselves into these archaic versions of it. We do need to realize that anyone who doesn't understand the past is doomed to repeat it. Because mankind has been through all this nonsense 5 times before, and it's been obliterated. Because of our own doing, our own arguing over things that really honestly do not matter, to leave at bay all the things that really do, to just get worse. Now, truth itself, it's a finicky thing, because people don't want to accept any other version of truth, and I really actually love the excuse of, we just can't know. No one can know. It's a waste of time. It doesn't really get you anywhere spending all that time, researching or trying to understand. And the reason why I'm trying to do what I'm doing is the fact of, the ancient proverb that, in order to be truly awake, you would have to awaken the minds and souls of all mankind. And that's the truth of it when you really boil down into it, because we're the slivers of the whole consciousness. But I mean, we don't have to get into that for now. I would just say that we need to, as a human being and a collective of human beings, an amalgamation of minds experiencing this consciousness in this physical realm, we need to actually start accepting what real science, not pseudoscience, but real science is telling us. We need to accept what we're finding upon the earth and within it. We need to accept that all of these different ancient civilizations had their times within time spaces and within the cycles of mankind. They all had their times, but they all left a record. Now we can say, okay, those tablets over there in Mesopotamia and Sumeria and Assyria and all them, them Sanskrits and, the Bhagavad Gita, all of these things. It's just, that was myth. That was mythology. Those tablets are just all mythology, just stories people made up. Okay. Well, I mean, out of the, say, 15,000, maybe even more tablets that have been found, and the ones that have actually been transliterated, now you're telling me that a species or a civilization that had 400 characters in their alphabet made these clay tablets and wrote everything down on them and stuck them in the kiln in order to be baked so that they would be able to be read for pretty much ever, right? They took all this information down, wrote all this information on down onto these tablets, made them, put them in order, and in very orderly fashion, in most cases, all because they were really proud of the myths they told, right? But this tablet over here is talking about the Enuma Elish tablets over here, talking about creation. Those are completely just made up stories, mythology, because people were really superstitious back then. But this tablet over here, that is the results of legal proceedings over a case of stolen wheat, is the nonsense ramblings of superstitious people as well. Or this receipt for services rendered over here on this tablet is the ramblings of hunter-gatherers as well. We really need to start thinking logically about this evidence, because it wasn't just one civilization over the course of time that are saying these things. It was all of them. Now they changed names, okay, but let's go directly into the Bible, right? As soon as Daniel and the other three were taken into, when all the Jews were taken into captivity in Babylon by Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar immediately changed all four of their names to absolutely unrecognizable from their names before. Why? Because he put it in his own language. All these different civilizations did nothing but put these stories into their own languages. Now, some have different variations, but even within the Enuma Elish, it says that one particular god in general, Marduk, went around to many of the different civilizations posing as a different god in each one. So the experiences of those peoples, the Greeks and the Norse mythology, the Norse people, the Britannic people, all these different tribes, all the way down into Central America and even within the Americas, all these different civilizations all over the different place, these tribes and accountings of their experiences from the start to up until now all speak the same story. So start correlating what the evidence is telling us instead of trying to push it all away and say, nah. Because I believe that almost every single person on this planet, especially within America, is tired, exhausted, broken down and weary. Why? Because we live in an absolutely unnecessary system. We live in a prison of cardboard box that we think is actually made of iron because somebody else told us it was. That is one of my favorite excuses. I don't believe anything anybody else, what man wrote down. I don't believe what anybody else says. Well, I mean, I'd hate to break it to anybody, but everything that you know was told to you by someone else. Because either someone wrote it down or spoke it to you in either a documentary or a video such as the one that I'm presenting to you now, or spoke it to you in person. All knowledge was brought to us by others. It's our duty to sweep through that knowledge, peruse, if you will, to try to discern or make some type of ascertainment between what is disinformation and what is actually truth, absolutely truth, right? There has to be an absolute truth or the lie. The absolute truth has to exist or the lies wouldn't. That is what we really have to focus on today. Let's start logically and rationally looking, weighing the evidence. You don't actually have to believe anything to be able to weigh the thought, idea, or evidence. You just have to think about it and start rationally putting these puzzle pieces together. Because all the different versions of the truth, even Christianity, has some truth in it. So we discern, we look, we see, we say, okay, well this piece of evidence over here and this piece of evidence over here contradict each other. So one of them has to be false. Because both of them can't be right if they contradict each other. We have to almost become individual scientists of history and reality in order to understand the truth. And I get it. We live in a society where you're not necessarily allowed that time. So we just want to continue on living in delusion, to set aside facts and evidentiary proof to continue on believing whatever we want is delusion. It's the very definition. So we continue on in our delusional phasings in societal norms, and we don't think twice about it. And honestly, I'm a consciousness and a man and a person and a human being living upon this planet when living in within these American boundaries that has had enough. And I'm hoping to be able to find a bunch of other people that have had enough as well. We need to stop and put away these archaic ideologies. There is no enemy. There is no enemy but ourselves. There is no one specifically out there trying to kill all Americans because we're free. I mean, think about that. They have freedom all in these other different places. You know, people don't like America because of our foreign policies, and it's time that Americans that really didn't like our foreign policies either to stand up and actually do something about it. Instead of a meme or a like or a share is not necessarily going to do this any justice. The revolution will not be televised. You know, you have to start digging into, and I don't understand why other people don't really want to dig into this stuff like absolutely full time, because this stuff is the most interesting, the most flabbergasting, the most mind-boggling stuff that I have ever really put my mind, and I got a crazy mind, I'm telling you, and I got a widespread basis range of information within this head, and I'm telling you right now, the truth is absolutely stranger than fiction, but it doesn't contradict any other version of it. You know, our inner worlds and outer worlds and minds and, you know, coming together and enlightenment. I mean, all that's well and good, sitting in your room. And we try to change our outer worlds just because we want to be more comfortable, or at least our ego wants to be more comfortable. But really the truth is that your ego doesn't necessarily exist, and this is an illusion. You're in a dream that you chose to be in. Trying to figure out how to get out. I don't know anybody out there that hasn't been in pain of some type every week, that hasn't struggled in some way every week, that hasn't almost given up every month. You know, we're living in an age and part of a cycle that is very negative, but there's a balance coming. There's an awakening happening. Our consciousnesses are actually in droves starting to understand that what academia and what the powers that be, the mind, is shoving down our throats as far as being historicity is bullshit. It would be one thing if they told us this is our history, and then we looked around and what we saw is evidence of what they told us our history was. But we keep bringing these other things to light, and new evidence to light, and new ways of looking at things that we didn't necessarily look at them before, because, you know, we're being presented some things that are absolutely contradictory to what academia and Egyptologists and history buffs or history experts, the PhDs, are actually telling us. And not to mention, you know, on a spiritual level, our souls are absolutely are in absolute contradiction to what is happening in the world. The amount of death and famine, starvation, which it's not even really famine. We have enough. We just don't want to share it. You know, the amount of just pure physical violence and murder and rape. All these different things are, you know, just because we've been conditioned and subliminally suggested to accept these things as acceptable doesn't make them so. Just because we've been conditioned to believe that these things are the norm doesn't make them any less evil. And I think that more and more people are actually starting to get that and feel that. People are absolutely confused as to what the truth is or what the purpose is or what even reality is. People are running around in absolute confusion, grasping at in the dark for any resemblance of justice. We've all been done wrong by somebody who doesn't have to pay any consequences, and we all know that this is absolutely wrong. You know, we are all scarred by those who think it's a fashion. There's no passion. That's our society these days. No love, no understanding, no real knowledge or wisdom within us. We float in this chaos from one seeming pleasure to the next, you know, without any forethought at this point, you know. And I'm an American. I put on that uniform as a Marine 7 days after graduating high school. No question in my mind. You know, I am a Marine fighting in the forces which guard my country and our way of life. And I am prepared to give my life in their defense. And I absolutely believed that wholeheartedly. And I really kind of I still do. You know, protect this country from enemies foreign and domestic. I stood on those yellow footprints and raised my right hand in the air. And I said those words, oaths. Do they mean anything to people anymore? You know, it used to be a man could be kept at his word. Now everyone's doesn't hold anything that they absolutely say to people, and absolute disrespect comes out of their mouth, absolutely unaccountable. And that is breaking down society. There's no consequence. Everyone's, hey man, you know, this shit ain't right. I can't ever get actual retribution or payback or justice. Seeking justice for the self. You know, karma, karmatic flow, get what you pay, you know, reap what you sow, all that. We we actually do to a certain extent, but there are, malevolent and malignant people out there that just want to cause harm no matter to what or who it is, because they're confused, feared. They fear life because they don't understand it. They're lost in a reality and a prison that they've been trapped in by someone else, and they don't understand that, and most people don't. And there are some people who are nodding their heads right now going, yep, and I am right there with you, dude. You know, I mean, we see it now. We're watching it happen. All this Area 51 nonsense, there's no reason to storm Area 51. We do need a revolution in this country, but the revolution needs to be of the mind, not of the hand. Revolution needs to be in action, absolutely, but that action cannot and will not be any violent one. Fighting for peace, it's like fucking for celibacy or shouting for silence. We can no longer do these things. It just brings more of what we don't want. What is truth? Let's start as a people really discussing what it is instead of arguing over what we think it is. There's a difference. There's a difference between discussing knowledge that we have and hearing someone else's knowledge. It's okay to be corrected, and guess what? It's okay to change your opinion when new evidence has been presented. It's okay to do that. It's, they put out this propagation about flippy-floppy. Oh, they're being flippy-floppy down there in the politics in Arkansas. Who cares? Flip-flop. I mean, if I knew one thing, if I believed one thing, and I kept on carrying on in that belief, and then somebody came to me and said, hey, bro, this evidence over here actually happened, right? And then I'm like, oh, well, then what I thought wasn't necessarily the case, but adding this new evidence in that here's the proof of, I can say honestly that, I was almost right. I had a little bit of it, but this right here actually puts more pieces together, and it's uncontradictory. And to me, uncontradictory evidence and facts are the most warming thing to me. I've been called hooky and kooky and all kinds of other stuff. I've been called every name in the book by every Christian out there, but I mean, I've been called worse by better. I can tell you that right now. But one thing I can say is that I'm not a complete fool. These guys pulling veils, the veil of ISIS over people's eyes, and actually, to be honest with you, I think a lot of people really like that veil. But some people are meant to ascend, and other people are meant to be thrown back into the fires of Gehenna, into the source, to do it all over again, and keep doing it over and over and over again until they realize how to ascend themselves out of their own pain and misery. Let's talk about one little fact, and then that's how I'm gonna conclude my show today. One little fact. Some people out there dream in 2 dimensions, black and white. Some people out there dream in 3, color. Some people have lucid dreams. If you think about this, if you can dream in 2 dimensions and dream in 3, then that means that they are taking up space. 3 dimensions takes up space. If it does take up space, then you have an infinite amount within your mind. The truth is, you are the universe, here to experience itself. Whether or not you decide to experience it within the purpose and realms of what mankind is here for is up to you. You can keep going every single day, grasping for some type of freedom from the daily grind, from the daily destruction of other people's malignancies. You can keep clutching and keep grasping on all fours, rolling down the road. Or you can get up and walk with your head held high without any fear of what's coming or what's going to happen. Because It's all for you. It's all you. I don't know how to explain that any more than what it is, but it's all for you. You are you, experiencing yourself. So let's get together and actually discuss truth. Let's discuss evidence. I'll be coming out with my first book here in the next couple of months. And I'm hoping to be able to throw it out there in as many markets as I possibly can and start getting more of a discussion going on instead of arguing. Bringing and weighing evidentiary facts so that we can actually lead mankind into a direction of peace, prosperity, abundance, and let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's get some nitty so we can get gritty in the city, baby. You know what I'm saying? I love your face, and this has been an episode of The Peaceful Savage. I'm Ivan Savage, your host, and I thank you for your consideration today. Love your faces. Peace be with you.